What's up, everybody? It's Troy Cartwright. Welcome back to another episode of 10-Year Town. Before we get started, I wanted to give you this week's stat of the week, powered by our friends over at Chartmetric. Today's stat is 2.5 billion. That is the total number of TikTok views that Walker Hayes' breakout single Fancy Like has amassed. It is a testament to how a song can resonate deeply and spread widely in today's digital age. Chartmetric helps you dive into moments like these, streaming stats, radio airplay, and more. If you want to uncover insights like this for yourself, head to chartmetric.com. Now, back to the show. Today's guest is artist and songwriter Walker Hayes. You know Walker from his songs like AA and Fancy Like, but what really sticks out to me about his journey is his resilience and perseverance. He's got so much wisdom, and we get into a lot of that in this episode. I really enjoyed this conversation. I know you guys will too. So without further ado, here he is, Walker Hayes.
Well, dude.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Man, it's going good. Shoot, I've been driving a lot this week, driving in and out of town to write.
Did you write today?
I did. I wrote a song called Divorce. Actually, it was pretty good.
Dang,
it was pretty funny.
That's sick.
About a girl getting divorced, and she's pumped. She's down at the beach. It's like, oh shoot, she done finalized the divorce. That's the hook. It feels good.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was fun. And then I wrote a couple days ago, an incredible song called Boston. And the hook is, I hate Boston because Boston gets you. About a girl moving to Boston. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's sick. It's so sad. I played it for my kids, and they loved it, but they were like, that is sad. It said, maybe one day I'll have a smart kid, and they'll go to MIT or Harvard, and me and you and Sam Adams can have a little reunion on the harbor and watch an old man catching bluefish while we catch up on life. And you can brag about your husband, and I'll still wish you were my wife. It's sad, I know. Woo. It says, you can show me around Beantown, and I might love it like you do. But right now, I hate Boston because Boston gets you.
That's good.
I know. It's just, man. You should hear it gets the heart. You're like, man, it's sad. Yeah.
But the sad songs, they, I don't know. I love writing them.
Dude, I'm with you 100%.
Because it just makes you feel something.
If you've ever lived earth or life, you've experienced sadness.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have really had, jubilation that's relatable, know. Even when Lainey and I finally kind of hit a lick in this town, it's not something that you walk up to people and you're like, hey, I'm famous now, or I got nominated for a Grammy. You don't lead with that.
Right.
In Planet Fitness, you usually lead with like, oh, my dad died too, or our kids, we're struggling with some stuff, and then instantly, you meet a best friend for life.
Yeah.
And it's usually in that, it sparks in that rock bottom area.
Yeah, and I read something the other day. I forget who said it, but it was like your ability to experience joy.
Yeah.
It's directly related how much pain you've experienced.
Totally.
And that feels true.
Yeah. Oh, I mean 100%. And I would never, I know a lot of people have experienced some really, really sad stuff, but I know that sentence applies to my life.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Just sadness gives you the freshest, most real perspective.
Yeah.
I think you can have on the good things.
Yeah.
That happen in this life, and what is worthy of being appreciated, which really, every breath should be.
Yeah.
But it takes maybe getting near to feeling like what it would be like to not have that next breath, or seeing someone you love take their last one, and then you're like, damn, we breathe. I breathe another day. It's kind of crazy. So Yeah, I love that sentence that you just said.
Perspective, you know?
100%.
Well, I always start this thing off with the same question.
Okay.
Which is, how long have you been in town?
This year is this July will mark 21 years.
Wow.
In Nashville. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Where from?
I was born and raised in Mobile.
Okay.
And that's where I came from. But I went to college in Birmingham, and then I went to North Carolina for 1 year for like some postgraduate stuff.
Okay.
But
what were you studying?
Not a lot of people know this, but I finished my pre-dental requisites at North Carolina, and I shadowed an oral surgeon.
Dang.
Yep.
And then
was just about to take the DAT.
Okay.
And,
is that like the GMAT for
dental?
Dentists?
Yeah, like the MCAT or LSAT or whatever. And I shadowed an oral surgeon, and he was the most wealthy man I'd ever been around.
Yeah.
But he was pretty miserable. And it kind of, he was, I guess you could say, he was like in the dead center of his life. He had beautiful kids, beautiful wife, beautiful home. I mean, his life was beautiful, but it just didn't seem fun, you know. And I started doing the math. I was like, I guess he's got to do this for another 20 years and then die, then retire, I guess, and he'll stay in this office. And I don't know. And I also my wife and I had taken a year off, and as I was doing these things, I kind of reconnected with her, and we were just girlfriend and boyfriend. And then we broke up, and as we reconnected, I don't know, I just decided to go home to Mobile, and then my dad got me a gig in Mobile because he was kind of pushy, encouraging, one of those dads like, hey, get out on the stage. And he booked me a gig in Mobile at a bar called the Yacht Club.
Yeah.
And I played it, and when I played that gig, I changed my mind about everything. I was like, hey, Lane, you want to move to Nashville? And she said, yeah. And it sounds crazy. I know that story is like, you did what? And but that was as simple and as decisive as it was. There was no second thinking or does this make sense? Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. I don't recommend it to my kid. I'm like, hey, you might want to think long term, but that's never been my specialty. So
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break here to tell you about our friends, the Graphic Guitar Guys. If you've ever thought about having a custom guitar, whether for merch, a giveaway, or a unique VIP package item, Graphic Guitar Guys makes it simple. They've worked with some of the biggest names in country music, handling everything from the guitar to full color graphics and shipping, and it's all for one easy price. They're also a great option for album pre-sale bundles or fan collectibles. I've worked with Scott and the rest of the team myself, and they really do make the whole process effortless. Check them out at thegraphicguitarguys.com. Now, back to the show.
Okay, so you play this gig.
Yeah.
Was it like literally like you got home that night and you're like, all right.
Yeah. So I just sat on a stool in a corner with a little crate amplifier.
Yep.
That an acoustic Oscar Schmidt's guitar plugged into, and so did my mic. So it was like through the crate was my vocal and the guitar.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, echoed from the corner of this restaurant. And there were maybe 4 tables of people in there and a dude at the bar. I mean, honestly, the restaurant, the bar section was like as big as this room. And there was a super kind woman, the lady who allowed me the gig. Her name is Trudy, and she at the end of every song which I knew like 4 songs. So I just played them over and over.
Yeah.
And she would walk by and put her tray under her arm and clap to let the crowd know, like, he's done, clap.
Yeah, clap.
And I knew it was just singular, you could hear single claps. And just through that gig, the first chord I strum, I was very shaky, scared, very self-aware. And then, the second time around with those songs, I was like, oh man, dude, this is fun. I sound good. This is awesome. I began to learn the word. Like I had them printed out on this little stand, and I just loved it, man. I mean, they gave me 2 free Michelob. I could just be like, hey, I'll take another, beer, and I guess they were like, give them an Ultra, and maybe they couldn't sell those. I don't know, but that's what they gave me. And when I left, I don't know, man. I think there's just something about packing your guitar up, man, and just you're the guy with the guitar, and the amp and the tools, and putting them in the trunk. And I just called Lainey from my Nokia cell phone, and I was like, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but I mean, what do you think about moving to Nashville, and let's try this thing, like this singing thing, and what's funny is I small town atmosphere. Mobile's not little, but I got gigs, man. Like the yacht club, they were like, hey, we got this birthday this weekend, you want to play that? Hey, we got this party. My dad sold real estate, so if they had a realtor's thing, you want to play here. Shoot, I played it. I was selling real estate at the time, and I would take my guitar to open houses and just jam if nobody was there. So I kind of picked up a lot of local gigs, and I'd get paid $200-$300, and I was like, I mean, this is crazy. Like, this is the beginning of the, so it was easy. I don't know. It was just easy to go, hey, we're gonna give this a shot. And it wasn't even that. It was just, we're just gonna move to Nashville and do it. Yeah.
When you moved, did you where'd you start? So
it's crazy. We didn't know anybody. We had an apartment at the Lowe's Vanderbilt Plaza, just like not the plaza, but behind it.
Yeah.
In the Lee Apartments. It was number 9. It was 1 room, just a room and a bathroom.
Yeah.
And we loved it. It was like the cutest 1-room thing. Like I remember carving pumpkins that first year. We would steal internet from Vanderbilt. Like we would go over to the Vandy campus.
Yeah.
And we'd wait for a student to walk in the lab, and we would run and catch the door, and then I'd go check my email, because that's, you had to pay for whatever that was at your apartment, and we didn't. And so I would check my email. I met a guy who worked for Premier Speakers Bureau in Franklin, very corporate.
Yep.
They booked motivational speakers, and I just needed money. I mean, all we had was like the money we had been saved up for, maybe from our parents or us. Yeah. And so I did, I met with this guy, and they needed a booking agent. And so it was crazy. I knew nothing about how somebody got booked, but they hired me, and that's what I did for my first year, is I booked motivational speakers for corporate events. And the money honestly was crazy. I mean, I was like 20, this probably doesn't sound crazy to a lot of people, but I mean, it was, here I am, like 24. I'm getting, I think my monthly base was like $2,500.
Yeah.
But I got commissioned on every booking.
Right.
And so, at the end of a bad month, I'd make $6,000. At the end of a crazy month, it was 12 or 15, and so Lainey and I were like, dude, we're rich. Like, what in the world? Is this it? Like,
a lot of money.
One thing we learned, though, is that, back to that oral surgeon, the money was great, but for my soul, it just was like, it was very empty. It just, corporate America. And it wasn't like I didn't enjoy the game of closing another deal, of selling another speaker. Like, I felt a rush from that. But, you know, I would get in the office at 9 and, you know, you leave at 5 in the winter and it's like dark.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, I didn't do anything today that I came here to do, you know. And the reason I did that is the way it made me feel, you know. And so every day I'd type a lot of songs on a computer, and I played all the open mic nights, you know, that I could. Played the Bluebird billions of times, and just I was still doing it. But I did recognize early on in like the real world that making money wasn't like the answer to anything.
Yeah, it's not always the thing, right?
No.
Especially when it's like at odds with this thing that you want to do.
Totally.
And I don't know, somehow when I was like younger too, I felt it more.
Yeah.
Because I was like, if I don't do this thing now, I'm gonna get stuck in this like loop of like I got a job and now I got to make money, and you know, if I just like went all in and I didn't make any money, it was fine. I was just used to it. You know.
Do you find? I mean, I guess everybody's different. And I do, like, I have family members and siblings who I feel like their souls were actually made for the cookie cutter life. Like, they're okay. Like, there's oral surgeons who aren't sad, you know.
It doesn't bum them out,
right? And I'm often like, well, is that your music? Because my dad, that's one thing I learned from my dad, is what it looked like for a man to love his job, and it's actually like, it's kind of a dangerous place. Like it will tear from other things you love, like your kids or your wife. You know, it will. Oh, there we go. We drooping. If you love your job, you know, too much, it can damage some things. But my dad loved real estate. I mean, he was as happy as you and I are to write a song. I mean, the dude was jacked, fired up. Nobody ever said, "Oh, bro, you got to go to work today." You know, he just was like, "I'm out. Let's go. It's gonna be a good day." You know, he was that guy. So, you know, I just think for early on, I learned, you know, the booking. There's lots of money, but it was good. It was good to learn real early that money just didn't matter to me. And another thing, it didn't matter to Lainey. Lainey, I'm so grateful for that, because you know, money does matter to some people. That's their music, I guess. But you know, Lainey did not. She didn't care. She doesn't care if we got $1 billion or none. I mean, she's like, oh, another day. You know, let's go. So I always had that advantage.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It was a great advantage.
Wow. So as you started doing these open mics and stuff, like, are you like starting to get your footing as far as like, oh, people like write songs, they get paid for this? Like,
dude, 100%. I didn't know, you know, being from Mobile, I had no clue you could get paid to write. I thought all artists just wrote their own stuff. So I'm just not a read the fine print guy. Like, I wasn't the guy who opened the CD and read the lyric. You know, I just put it in and just all feelings, you know. And so
vibes guy.
100%. So I go to the Bluebird. I actually showed up and I was going to sing Drift Away and Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. And I immediately realized every number and name they called, they were singing songs they had written. And I was like, oh shoot, dude, you know, I didn't write these songs. So I left, I snuck out, and then Lainey and I went back the next Monday and I wrote some songs. And they, you know, they were terrible. They were bad, but they were fun. You know, they were funny. And they were quirky. You know, and they rhymed and they had melody. You know, they were decent enough to sing, and it made people laugh, and that was it. I mean, I was hooked. I mean, from that experience that I just described, I've never stopped writing songs. Like that's just the way I exist. Is I'm always, you know how to. I'm just looking for the next subject. Line, hook, anything, you know.
Man, you just always, it's almost like a I was at dinner with my dad my dad last night and my wife, and you know, you're just like, I don't know. He was talking about like fishing with his dad.
Yeah.
In like the Chesapeake Bay in Virginia. And I'm like writing that down. I'm like, I don't know. I haven't written it yet, but I just.
Chesapeake.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all that, like everything you just said, I'm like, let's book a day. Like that. I mean, it hurts.
Yeah.
You know, you're like dads and sons. Like that's just.
Yeah.
That you can't overwrite that subject.
Nope.
You know?
Nope.
And it's going to be therapeutic and awesome, whatever we say. And Lord knows somebody out there is going to hear it and go, oh, dude, me too, you know? And you know, it's somewhat of like I don't want to say obsession, because it's not like, I feel like some obsessions at some point are choices we make. But I mean, I guess you got to be exposed to something and choose to start it, like working out or some food you love. You know, you have to choose to take the first bite. But like, it's not like I wake up and choose to do what we're saying.
Right.
It's, you know, and that's the battle with my wife is, you know, and kids, you know, they're like, Dad, you're always talking to yourself and like whispering and looking through us, you know, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like that's just that's
just
my
always
being.
There.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it makes it hard to be present sometimes.
100%. And I have to really be like, okay, just buckle down. Like listen to what Loxley's saying right now. Do this later, you know? Yeah. And it's like a just, you know, bear down and focus. And if I can get off of the thing long enough, I can usually move on and be present. But it's tough.
It's interesting. I've never talked to anybody about this before, but yeah, there is something for me. It's kind of like, I don't know. I feel the same way about like working out. Like if I have a day and I get up and I write a song, I feel like I got that monkey off my back for like 100%, a day.
100%. Yeah.
And then I go home, I like get on the Peloton and I do that thing
you
for
did that
half
thing.
an hour. And then I'm like, all right, now I can live.
Right.
Now I can just do whatever. But more times than not, what happens is I do those two things and then I'm sitting there and I'm like, what's
the next one? Yeah, I know.
So it's hard, but
I know.
I'm getting better about just trying to like live in the moment.
Let it come. Yeah. Lainey will say, like we'll be in the car and she'll, you know, she's very kind about it, but she'll go, let's help Dad with this one line. Like he's stuck on a line, and she'll be like, if you get this one, can you be good? Yeah. And then maybe, you know, tonight you can go lay it down and I love that. I'm like, yes, please just let me shout this out. Listen to the differences. Here's some options. What do y'all like? And then I can put that period on that little, it's just hard to find a stopping point, you know?
Totally, man.
And she's so nice about that. She's like, let's help. She's like, there's just one lyric. Let's help Dad, you know, get through the thing. So,
wow.
But
that's cool, man.
Yeah.
I love that. So at some point, I guess, you get like a publishing deal and like the first record deal and all this stuff? Like how long did that take?
Dude, I have the craziest first pub deal story. So I got fired from my first booking agent. Yeah. And me and the boss, his name is Dwayne Ward. We didn't get along. I haven't seen him honestly since then. I would love to though. I was kind of a jackass employee and he was a little bit like micromanager guy, you know, and we just didn't work well together. But a year in, I got let go. The final straw was I didn't get a haircut. He wanted me to like clean up, and I was like, man, I'm sorry. That's something like my mom would have told me to do, not like my boss, you know. Yeah. And so he fired me, and I probably deserved it, but I got fired when my wife was pregnant with our first kid. I got fired in like August. And I remember thinking, man, I got to get a publishing deal before the year's over. Because, you know, we had some money saved up after a year and we were okay. It wasn't like scary. But I was like, dude, I got a kid, I got a house. You know, we had put a down payment on a home. And a friend, I had no idea what we were going to do, but a friend 2 doors down, his name was Greg O'Brien. Super nice guy. He had a son named Hogan. Unfortunately, he's passed now, but his wife, Susan Levy, worked at a record label, and so he was connected with label people. He brought me downtown in an old diesel like Mercedes, and I stopped and played songs for 2 producers, Dave Malloy and Scott Hendricks, and a manager named Christy DiNapoli. And Christy DiNapoli worked for Killin Music Group, Buddy Killen's music group, publishing company. The first 2, David Malloy and Scott Hendricks, were so kind, but they wanted to cut sides on me. Yeah. They just wanted to cut a 5-song thing and shop me. Yeah. Christy wanted to pay me $600 a month to write songs. And that just was way less scary. Like I'd never made a record before. You know, I didn't know. Yeah. I didn't think I was that great of a singer. I just wanted to write. Yeah. And so I went with Christy and I signed my first pub deal. And then he continued to up the draw month by month to what I needed. Yeah. Over time. But he gave me kind of a trial time. And I didn't even write a song with anybody for a year. I only wrote alone. I mean, I just wrote all by myself because I was scared he had some co-write ideas, but he didn't like press them upon me. He knew that I was kind of timid about that. I mean, it took me forever to be confident enough to walk into a room and say, oh, I have this idea. This is from my heart, you know. I'm amazed how kids do that now, like new people that I write with.
Fearless, man.
I know. I'm just
crazy.
like, you just walk up in here and you start singing like that, you know. I mean, it's still kind of blows my mind every day. But got a pub deal with Killin Music Group, and that was like the first. My wife had our first baby. We would play darts all day, like at our house. We would wake up late, and I just would start writing, and then Leela would wake up, and I would hold Leela in my left hand, and that was like my handicap, playing darts against my wife, and we would play cricket. Yeah. And then every once in a while, we would get a babysitter and go to Broadway Brew House, and we would hustle people because Lainey was so good at darts. And I'd be like, hey, $20 a game. And it was awesome. Like those were the best days. We had no idea, but it was a dream. It was like I'm getting a check, every month just to write songs and turn them in. I mean, this is crazy. Yeah.
Were you were they giving you like feedback on the songs? Like
they would get feedback, and they would pitch them, and we would have holds, and we would have close calls, and then every now and then, a label. My first record deal basically came out of one of those like introduction meetings where you play songs to get cut, but then an A&R person is like, how long you been in town, and you're like, well, I just write. And, but Christy was with me, and he was very good manager, so kind, so attentive, like always responsive to songs, and very hands-on, like, I love this song. Can you change, can you work on this a little bit or redo, and it was just so much fun, and but my first record deal was with Mercury. And a nice woman who's in the business now still is Allison Jones. Yeah. She signed me to James Stroud. And so that was my first record deal. And it was quite a surprise. It wasn't like I came here for music. I didn't really know that it would always be an artist thing. Again, I consider myself a very just average singer at best, and Nashville is just, you're like, the people open their mouth and you're like, dude, God gave you those lungs. That's crazy. And I just, we've already talked about it. My passion is the song. That's all I care about. My favorite thing is whatever song I'm working on right now. And so it was always kind of surprising to me, you know, when somebody was like, no, let's do the artist thing with you. And honestly, they'd always be like, we'll give you an advance. And as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, yes.
You were in.
The answer is yes. You know, I was always like, I need, you know, Lainey was always pregnant. You know, I mean, I think when I was at Mercury, she was pregnant with our second. And so I was like, okay, I got to take care of a family. Like, I'm not getting any outside cuts.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, your story is so interesting.
Yeah.
And it has so many like variations, but I was thinking, I was just reading. Yeah. You know, I was kind of like thinking like, man, I wonder what's a part maybe you haven't talked about that much.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if this is that interesting, but I kind of wanted to zero in on like this time after your first record deal. Yeah. And like, that was like 2010 or so.
Well, that was after my second one, but yeah, I mean, my first one was James, Allison, James and Luke Lewis parted ways. Okay. So that first deal blew up very fast.
Gotcha.
Then I got a deal at Capitol Records, kind of the same thing. A friend of mine pitched a song for Keith Urban.
Yeah.
And Autumn House at the label said, this isn't a great song for Keith, but who's this guy singing this demo?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, he wrote it too. You know, he just does those demos. So I got the deal on Capitol, and then you know, we really tried to make it work at Capitol. You know, they had a lot of belief in me.
Yeah.
Mike Dungan and we butted heads, kind of like me and Dwayne back at Premiere. You know, that's definitely a trend, you know, in my story is like, oh, me and so, which is funny because it's not like growing up, I always got along with coaches, like, and even if they were bad, I did okay. You know, I don't know. It was a weird thing in Nashville, but yeah, I lost my deal at Capitol. Capitol merged with EMI, and through that merger, after 3 radio singles flopped, I was dropped by Capitol. And that was definitely a yay, I'm free. But then it was like, but what am I gonna do? You know, it was that was a tough time. So that was about 2010. Yeah. Or 11.
So like, I don't know, like what happened next, and like where were you at? Yeah. Just like,
I mean, honestly, I got another pub deal. Yeah. You know, with Zavitson Music Group, incredible team, just loved the other writers there, felt like family. It was a home. Yeah. You know, I think that's a very overlooked, like if audience members of this are not familiar with the music business, man, a home-based publishing company, it's the heartbeat of a writer, man. Just having a place to show up, people to hand your songs to critique, to celebrate, friends to write with. Yeah. That is like summer camp for life, you know, to me. And so Zavitson Music Group was great. Unfortunately, you know, family's getting bigger, bills are getting, you know, a little more, and we're really tight on money, and so I had to do anything I could, you know, on the side. I was getting booked, you know, here and there for occasional gigs. Praise God for a young man named Aaron Tannenbaum who's been booking me since probably 2008. Wow. I mean, this guy walked into Puckett's Grocery in 2008, and he was just sitting there having a beer by himself, and we met, and he's basically kept me working. Yeah, you know, and when I say that, I mean he's gotten me gigs when I've had no business having a gig. Yeah, you know, he just finds them and has always found them. So I'm really in debt to that guy, and I would never go I just go wherever he went. But he kept me working, and the publishing, I continued to get paid the draw to write. And we had close calls, man. I mean, we had some holds that were crazy. We had some solo writes, that got put on hold. We had some funny we had some holds that you just wouldn't believe how they didn't get on the album or why. One of my biggest songs was with a man named Tony Hazelden, called Touching Feet, and Rodney Atkins was supposed to, be his next single right after Back Road, Make You Want to Take a Back Road. And, Tony sent me an article. This song called Touching Feet was about when you're arguing with your wife, you still touch feet at night and everything's okay.
Yeah.
And he was accused of smothering his wife with a pillow one day. And so the label called and was like, obviously that's not going to be our next single. And it was just, I mean, that wasn't even a shocker, after everything that we had been through. It was like, that's pretty much par for the course. Here I am, we're approaching 8, 9, 10 years in the business. I've probably written 1,000 songs, by then. And every time I get a hold, I'm like, don't even tell me, man. I don't even care. I just want to write, And but things got a little not scary, but you start to go, well, I guess this is how it's going to be. I'm not gonna, not everybody gets famous. Not everybody gets a big hit song. That's why not a lot of people do it. But there was never, a lot of people are like, oh, did you ever think about giving up? There wasn't a give up thought. There was like a, we talk about that thing in you, that's almost a nuisance at times. Like there were times working at Costco, I think fatigue was catching up with me, and I would sit in my car and I would get mad at my dream, and it was like, well, who are you yelling at? And honestly, I'd have been like, I don't really know, but I just don't want, like, I want to shed it like skin, I want to leave it.
You just don't want to have the dream anymore.
Yeah, and it's because, I realize, and again, Lainey never once did Lainey ever wake up and go, this dream is dragging me to places I don't want to go, as far as like being broke, or, we have kids and we can't buy certain things. She never expressed that, but I was very aware of the life I desired to give my wife and my kids.
Yeah. And
I was aware of being incapable of that due to my dream. It was, and so there were, and then there were just so many days where I would wake up and go, this is what was funny. You ever remember that movie Liar Liar? Mm-hmm. When the dude's trying to say that the pen is blue, but he keeps like writing red all over his hand. Yeah. That's how I felt. Is I would just wake up and go, man, I just want to provide. Like, can I just provide? Can I not dream, and can I just provide?
Yeah.
And then to punch me in the stomach was the song idea that I wrote on a cup or on my hand, or on the nearest napkin I could find. And it was like, I'd be like, I don't want this dream. And then I'd be like, oh, I don't want this dream. I'd write a song about not wanting the dream. Yeah. And so it was like, it was just this cyclical frustration of almost like a sin. Like, I don't want to be doing this. Yeah. Like, to do the very things we hate, verse from the Bible. It was like that. It was like, I hate you right now, but I can't stop. Yeah. And right. It was that. There was never like a very constructive, thoughtful process of I need to give up. It just, because I knew, I'd been in Nashville. I knew a lot of people who were so talented and never made it, but they still wrote songs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's hard because, you know, I've done a lot of these interviews now, 80 something. And, you know, for some people it takes 17 years.
Yeah.
As a writer.
Yeah.
And like, you know, even for myself.
Yeah.
I'm 9 years in, and you know, there's some stuff that's gone my way, but a lot of stuff that has not.
Yeah.
And it hurts, man. Like, just being honest.
Right.
But you just, you know,
yeah.
I get frustrated. I sit on the stairs and I'm like, my wife comes home and I'm just like, I just don't know.
Right.
I don't know if I got it anymore.
Right.
If I can take it anymore.
Right.
Like, how many blows can you absorb? But then, you know, you just get up the next day and the song is
100%,
and it's there, and you got to go chase it.
Right.
So,
and though, you know, they're the best stat, you know, that I tell my kids is the greatest in any field, no matter what you're talking about: management, business, banking, basketball, songwriting, dancing. The best of, they just failed the most. And you say you're 9 years. There comes to a point where you're like, what's another song that's not a hit? It was fun to write. You know, there comes a term where it's like, I'm almost like, I mean, failure doesn't even like. It's like, okay, whatever.
No,
yeah,
like,
you know.
Yeah, talking to my sister like 6 months ago, and I was telling her, you know, you just hear no every day.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't even
phase you at all.
It doesn't hurt. Because
not at all.
You know, for some reason, every now and then one no does like it finds its way to hurt you some way you haven't built any armor for.
It's just like golf to me. It's like I can hit 30 shanks.
Yeah, but
and every now and then you just smash one. You have no idea why, you know, and you're like, oh, that's how that's supposed to feel. And then you're like, oh, here's my money. I'll pay again to play. I'm not really like that about golf, but I definitely am that about songwriting. I mean, if you take all these, you take your idols or, you know, whatever, their batting average is like 0.001,
right.
You know, and I think that's one thing we forget is we focus on the 10 artists in our pop culture that are having a moment.
Yeah.
And we look at them like there's a bunch of them, but there's not. Yeah. What there is a tiny eye of a needle of people making it right now. And then there's millions and billions and hundreds of thousands of songs that are not big time, you know, right now. And that's kind of that's where you reside most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, but hey, at least you're doing what you love, and you're shooting, you know, for that one.
Yeah, getting to play the game, man.
Right. Yeah. And God gives us people like me and you that stupid, it's either ignorance or like insanity, but it's like, I love waking up thinking today might be the day. You just never know. Because, you know, that's
the lottery every day.
Right. Man. It is. And it could be the bad lottery, you know, which is so true. I mean, we've hit that one many times, but we've also hit the good one.
Well, yeah. What did it feel like? Like when, I mean, I'm sure you had a few that did something, but the first one that really connected was, You Broke Up With Me.
Yeah.
Right? And like, what did that feel like when it was happening?
Honestly, not like there was no like one moment.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of that momentum and stuff was stolen kind of from us by life, by an unfortunate circumstance. We lost our 7th kid the day I was supposed to sing on the CMT Awards. So my first TV performance is when my wife went into labor and we had a stillborn, and her name was Oakley. But to really answer your question, the process was amazing. I mean, riding around in a rental car with my manager Rob, you know, selling merch, playing shows, beginning to hear people like literally sing every word to a song for the first time. Just mind blowing, just pretty incredible feeling. And and not like, there wasn't this immediate like, I told y'all or I showed you. It just, there was a lot of gratitude, you know, because I mean, I think that was, if you say You Broke Up With Me being my first, you know, break, dude, I mean, that was 10 years ago. So that was 11 years, you know, into Nashville. Yeah. So, you know, I got a taste of, oh, this is a career, you know, like I'm going out with artists and this is a hit. Like this thing's getting Shazammed, you know, worldwide. You're like, oh my gosh. And, you know, I think country wise, I think it died at number 9 or whatever, but it made a historic run. It didn't sound like anything.
It was, I mean, that was when I moved to town. It was big. It was a big song. Yeah. Well, I would have never known. I assumed it was like number 1 for weeks. So. Yeah,
well, and that's the thing is it impacted.
Yeah, was it
like a banger?
Yeah, and there's impactful songs that
totally
aren't always like
right,
number 1.
and it there was very polarizing reaction. You know, in the country world, there were PDs that emailed us and said, "I want my 3 minutes back. This is the worst thing I've ever been sent." You know, but in the meantime,
did that hurt? Or
not after 11 years. And no, man. I've had meetings where men and women look me in the face and they said everything you could, you know, they said, you know, your voice is not great. This song's not that great. You know, you need this, you need that. You need to sing songs about this. Just the whole wouldn't quit the day jobs. You know, I've heard that a billion times where it just, you know, by then it was laughable that someone, you know, wouldn't like that song.
Well, it's so interesting. Again, you know, I'm just watching from my perspective, but it's like, that song was polarizing. And then like you kind of have this other thing happen like years later with another massive song. And it's like, man, I feel like by that point, like everybody that I knew was just like so stoked about the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
Because it was like, oh my God,
yeah,
it's happening again, you know, but it's like, it was just, I don't know. I feel like people just are rooting for you because it's that, you know, you're just doing the thing, you know.
There's a sense of that. I mean, there was definitely a feeling of, you know, by when Fancy Like came out, I've been here 16 years or 17, and there was definitely this, you know, I think Nashville probably saw me as like, that poor guy, like he's still here doing the thing, you know. And then when that happened, I think a lot of not the people that had invested in me inside, you know, I think a lot of there's a split thing, I think, that happens to me in Nashville. There's probably half who are like, that poor idiot. And then there's half of those people who genuinely were like, man, I knew there was something different about that dude. Like I didn't really know what was gonna happen. Yeah. And that's an interesting, no one's really ever like gotten here with me on an interview, but I have this conversation with Lainey a lot. Do you ever be talking about somebody and then you go, I wonder what they say about me, you know, like maybe your in-laws or something. And you're like, and it's a good perspective. It's like, oh, you got to remember, they probably talk about you. What did they say? Like, what's the thing where they're like, oh, he's doing his thing. What is the thing? Yeah. Well, I often wonder that about, you know, I think that's God either like forgot to put that in my brain or like left some self-awareness, because I've always been inquisitive, like, why is my stuff so different? You know, like when I'm writing it, it doesn't feel that polarizing. Really? Or me as a human, like even Fancy, like the love for it is very loud, but the hate is also, and you're like, why does it make you so mad? Like I don't have a finger on the pulse of what is that ingredient in there where you're like, why does this make somebody so mad? Because it makes me so happy, which was the same thing with You Broke Up With Me. It was like, how do you not want to go to You Can't Cut My Party? Which I'm like, you just don't want to do that? Like,
well, and it's like it's like that thing. It's like I think sometimes people just love to hate.
Yeah.
You know. And it's like at a certain point, a song reaches like this like zeitgeist level where it's everywhere. So everybody's got an opinion on it because they heard it whether they wanted to or not. But yeah, I mean,
I get that.
It's like with like Nickelback or something. You're like, it's like, well, why do people hate? Like, what did they do to you?
Right.
Except for like write some bangers.
Right.
That everybody heard.
Right.
You know.
And you know what's funny? I will say, I feel that sometimes. Like I feel that about a product or a song as well.
Yeah.
And we're probably just talking about humanity and the mess up. Like we're broken, and so when you know, but yeah, it's just always, I've always been interested. Like I admire a lot of artists, and you know, there's a lot of artists that I have the utmost respect for, and one thing I'm jealous of is a more vanilla artist or writer who can be very successful in this town, because I've never been able to do that. It's always the only success I've had in this town is with songs that this town generally, it made them cross their eyes. They were, even you broke up with me, like I told you with that email. The same thing with Fancy. Like it was very, nobody picked that off the EP as like the one. Right. AA, you know, that I got a lot of, you know, pushback. You know, that was like offensive to some people. It was it didn't sound, you know, sonically it was confusing to people, you know, and those are some of my biggest,
your biggest,
you know, to this day. And I'm always like, well, I don't always aim, you know, for these left of center. Like I write a lot of normal songs that are just, they're less quirky, you know, but it's like those don't ever get streamed or repeated, you know. It's interesting.
I think what you're saying too, though, is I couldn't prove it scientifically, okay, but I think when anybody brings something unique that only they can do, there's something special about that. About just that unique thing.
Perhaps a believability, maybe, or
and I think like that's just, you know, that's the pep talk I give myself a lot
every
of days.
day.
I'm like, man, like I've rhymed crazy with baby so many times, like written about the guy meeting the girl in the bar. Yeah. And it's like, that song's not getting cut.
Right.
Or so like, what else do I got?
Right.
What did I do? What title what title do I have that nobody's writing today? Right. Let me at least try that, because maybe I got a better shot there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't have any answers. I'm just thinking about it.
I've just often, it's just, it's to me, there's another aspect to what we do, you know, where there is popularity, like it or not. There's just it's cool to like this person, or it's not to like this person, and you're like, where does that get decided, and what, you know, how come, you know, like Nickelback, it was cool to like them, and then I guess it wasn't. And honestly, I'm not a person. I didn't really care, you know. I'm Nickelback all the way. Like we got to open for them in Vancouver. It was one of the coolest days of my life. And
that's so sick.
But you do meet the guy, you know, and you're like, does he feel like, did he wonder, like, why are we so big, and then why are we so hated on, you know?
And being human is so strange.
Yeah,
it's it's a long, strange trip,
right?
You know,
and in the end, the world A&R is your life. You know, you know, you show it to them,
right,
and they choose. You know, so anybody that's getting mad, you're really just getting mad at the economy. You're getting mad at the consumer. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Totally.
Like, trust me, every writer that you love has written a song that you might hate. You just won't hate it because they're them.
Yeah.
And the world chooses. It's not like I made the world love Fancy Like.
Yeah.
They just were like, that's it.
They
that's
loved
what
it.
we need.
It was infectious, man.
Right.
You know, and it was
Right.
it was great. It was a wild time, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we gotta get out of here soon.
Come
but
on.
one more question for you. If you could go back to like you just getting started, and there was one piece of advice you could give, what would you say?
Oh man. Honestly, that's not like a fun, I don't know. I just wouldn't want to change.
You wouldn't want to change it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, I'll tell you this. What age would I be talking to me at?
I don't know.
Like as a kid?
Yeah, or it doesn't have to be you. You know, it could be somebody just moving here or whatever, you know.
Yeah, because if it was me, I wouldn't listen at that. I'd be like, shut up, old man, you know. But no, you know, I think, honestly, it's so cliche, but you know, I think if there's something that I would get back from, you know, my early relationship with Lainey, and then, you know, being a dad, a young dad, you know, somebody told me at some point when I had just found Jesus, like just become a believer, and I was stressed about providing, and my brother-in-law just looked me in the face and just said, man, that's God. You know, you love your kid, love your wife, you love the Lord. It's his job to provide. You just enjoy the gift, you steward the gifts he's given you. And I guess just when he said that, as simple as it sounds, my shoulders just kind of relaxed and was like, oh, you for real? Like, that's God's job, not mine. Like, mine as the man is not like to just, you know, stress and worry and work it out, you know. And that was life-changing for me. And I do know I wasted a lot of time just staring at the fan, you know, stressing out. How am I going to write us into provision? You know, how am I going to pay? You know, when, it's funny for a person who's not a future thinker, like the minute my wife told me she was pregnant, I was like, oh my God, we don't have food. We don't have a diaper. We don't have and she was like, hey, we have like 9 months. Like we have a second. And so I think I would just be like, man, just take life literally for the moment you have, be extremely attentive there and only there.
Yeah.
And the rest, like, you can't fiddle with the past. You definitely don't know what the future, you know, holds. And just be now. Like, just be now.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Just live.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here.
I enjoyed hanging with you.
What a pleasure, man.
Yeah. Good times.
All right, guys. That's it. That's the pod. See you later.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. If you want to submit a question for one of our Q&A episodes, you can do so at tenuretowne.com. We would love it if you would join the Tenure Town community, which just means we'll send you updates via email about stuff we got going on. And of course, please rate and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Wherever you listen or watch this thing, we appreciate you so much. See you next week.